Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coach Craig Sports. Today is Monday, June 6th, and this is the MLB DFS video for today. So, in today's video, we'll be doing a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they turned out. Talking about my core picks for the FanDuel main slate, which is a 6-game main slate overall. Would not recommend spending too much money on this slate since it is a little bit random today. And then after that, going over my top GPP stacks from my article over at WeBetATS.com. But without further ado, we'll get started with a recap of yesterday's picks. We're going to start off at the pitcher position with Luis Castillo, $8,400. Got to 32 points yesterday. He was a push. Pitched like 6 1/3 innings, gave up 3 runs. Could have been a little bit higher upside. Thought he was going to pitch just a little bit better. And if he would have done that, got the win, we would have been very, very excited yesterday. So not a bad play by any means, but definitely could have been a little bit better as well. Then we had his teammate Joey Votto, $3,000, got to 12.7 points, so he was a hit yesterday. Then we had Jake Berger at third base, $2,200, got to 22.2 points. Oddly enough, that's a lot of twos there. He was a hit. He was the third overall third baseman on the slate, and obviously the cheapest one in the top 5. Then we had Mike Trout, $4,100, pretty good history yesterday. Ended up with 6.2 points. Did give him a push since not somebody that completely killed us, but we were definitely looking for a little bit more out of a player of Mike Trout's caliber. And then last but not least, we had Tommy Pham, $3,400, got to 21.7 points, so he was hit, the 7th overall outfielder on yesterday's slate, so pretty good value there at $3,400 as well. So it was a decent day yesterday. Obviously could have been just a little bit better since we did have the 2 pushes on there. If you would have went with like Yordan Alvarez over Mike Trout and then a little bit better pitcher over Luis Castillo, would have had a really solid day overall. But even with this core 5, if you had some other decent picks alongside them, had a good chance of cashing yesterday. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to my core picks for today. And I am going to start out by saying the pitching on today's slate is very, very yucky. There's no easy way to say that around there. Obviously, Robbie Ray's the top guy, but he is going against the Houston Astros, so it's kind of a difficult matchup there. He hasn't pitched as good as we would like to see this year. So my pick at pitcher is actually Cal Quantrill, $7,700. Probably got the best chance to gain a quality start out of any of these guys today since he's been pitching close to 6 innings pretty consistently. A lot of these other guys have been failing to hit 6 innings a lot of the time or have a very difficult matchup. Goes against the Texas Rangers today. He doesn't really have too much history versus them, so that typically does favor the pitcher. So does offer a little bit of upside there. At $7,700, we're hoping for a guy to get to 36 points here. He might get closer to 33, but if he can end up with the win, could definitely put him over the top today as long as he gets that win, that quality start, and maybe a couple extra strikeouts today even. And then we move down to catcher Alejandro Kirk, $2,800. This Toronto team is one that I do love stacking today. The last time we played Alejandro Kirk, it was the last time he had an offer in like the last 2 weeks. So unfortunately, we just had some bad timing there. It went over 5. But I do like this matchup against Daniel Lynch for him today. He's 0 for 1 versus him in his career, but very, very small sample size there, obviously. Then we move down to second base with Jose Altuve, $3,600, averaging just under 11.5 fantasy points per game on the season. Goes against Robbie Ray today. He's 6 for 14 versus him in his career, so some pretty decent history there as well. Definitely like the upside that Jose Altuve can give us on any given day. Then we move down to our outfielders. We're going to start off with George Springer, 2 for 3 versus Daniel Lynch in his career, $4,000. Averaging just under 12 fantasy points per game on the season. Kind of starting to heat up once again, so definitely have a lot of interest in him. Obviously, batting leadoff, and Toronto's one of those teams that we are going to want to attack today overall. Then last but not least, we have Franchy Cordero, $2,500. He's averaging just under 9 fantasy points. That's not too bad for a cheap price tag guy. Kind of been a little bit boom bust, so he could have a big game here and then go over 5 the next game. So that's kind of the concern with him. He is going against Noah Syndergaard today, and he is 2 for 3 versus him in his career. So could be some upside there as well today, but definitely a cheap option to look at. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $14,400 remaining, $3,600 per player. So definitely some opportunities to pay up if that's something you want to do. You can fill in with some other value picks as well as those pay up options. Or if you want to take a little bit more balanced approach, that's definitely fine as well. As I mentioned with today's slate, there's going to be a lot of randomness to there. There's not the great pitching matchups today. There's not the great hitting matchups today. So if you have a strong gut feeling about somebody, go with your gut feeling today. There's no shame in doing that today because it's kind of wide open and it's only a 6-game slate. And as I mentioned before, just don't invest too much money in the slate overall unless you have like that strong gut feeling and you feel pretty confident in a couple different players. But for me, I'm just not going to play as much today, but I will still be playing. I'll still be using my core and some of my GPP stacks as well. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to my article over at WeBetATS.com and talk about my top GPP stacks. So the first one that I do have is the Boston Red Sox going against Noah Syndergaard today. So this is a really boom bust one. The Red Sox have been hitting the ball very well. Syndergaard's kind of been hit or miss pitching this year, so could go either way. But the Red Sox hitters do have decent history versus Noah Syndergaard, so that's why I do like them today as well. Then we have the Toronto Blue Jays. They have limited history versus Daniel Lynch, but still have pretty decent history at that. Daniel Lynch just got rocked the last time out. Still, a very young pitcher. So I do prefer the Blue Jays in this matchup. And then last but not least, we have the Houston Astros going against Robbie Ray. Maybe one of the more talented pitchers on tonight's slate, but the Astros have hit him very well in the past, and he's been struggling with walks once again this season. So definitely like the upside that the Houston Astros team provides overall. But with that being said, these are my core 5 picks as well as my top GPP stacks for today, June 6th. As always, if you have any questions related to MLB DFS, be sure to leave them down in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Also, be sure to let me know your favorite play on tonight's slate, whether it's someone from my core 5 picks, whether it's someone from my top GPP stacks, or as I mentioned before, if you have a strong gut feeling about somebody, let me know who that player is today. Definitely interested in hearing what you guys have to say. But with that being said, if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build a community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS, whether it's MLB or USFL. Those are the 2 main ones at this point in time. It was a pretty decent USFL week. Obviously didn't have enough Case Cook's exposure as probably wanted since he kind of went off yesterday, but that's a whole story for a different day. And then once we get back around to NFL and NBA regular seasons, I'll be covering DFS for those 2 sports as well. And then with that being said, if you are a new or current subscriber who's yet to do so, be sure to hit that notification bell down below. It's going to let you know every single time I post up a new video. Like I've been saying, I post up daily MLB DFS videos just like this. But with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. Hopefully you all enjoyed. And then last but not least, special shout out to each and every one of you watching today's video. I truly do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It definitely means a lot to me, and I hope each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.